Welcome back to the CD Financial Podcast, CD Financial, where health meets wealth. I'm Marcus C., your host. That man across from me, as always, Chuck D. Chuck, how the heck are you today?
I am fantastic.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah. I
How-
wish we were joined together, but there's plenty of folks that do podcasts exactly like this every week. So
yes,
we're kind of thankful for the technology too, aren't we?
I love it. I love it. Either way, whether I'm sitting across from you at the desk or I'm sitting, I don't know, what, a couple thousand miles away from you in Texas, I love just sitting around with you, man. This always feels good. It just feels like a nice,
Wait
relaxing
a minute.
chat.
That sounded like an overstatement. Is it? It took us 24 hours to get to my in-laws during deep COVID, like September 2020.
Yeah.
And my wife said, Angie says, I'm out of here. We're going to visit my parents. I can't do this anymore. And I'm wondering how many miles, well, 24 hours, right? Times 60.
Yeah.
Right. So that's right. Well, probably 65. That's 1,500 miles. It's probably the same to
I,
Austin.
I think it's pretty close to 1,500. I was exaggerating with a couple of thousand, but
You
yes.
know what? Why let the truth get in the way of a good story, right? 13
Exactly, man. Exactly.
1,357 miles it says to Austin. So you know what? What am I, the self-appointed critic? Why should I be questioning you?
You the mileage guy all of a sudden? What are you gonna? Are we getting Michelin stars for this? I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing over
Tell
there?
a story, Charles. Come on.
Okay, look. So since you brought up the 1,500, maybe in my head it feels like thousands of miles because as a kid, and you know this, we used to travel from here to visit my grandmother in Anaheim every year, every other year in the summer.
Right. Yeah.
And my dad would never run the AC in the summertime because, in his words, yeah, in his words, the cart might overheat. But ultimately, what it was is it was a ploy to keep three kids in the back seat still. Because when you're going through the desert and it's 110 outside and there's no AC, uh, you don't want to move. I mean, you're fighting for life. Is what at that point you're just like, if I just sit still long enough, we'll make it, and I'll live to tell the tale at some point in
Here,
the
here,
future.
Jackals, take some water.
Yeah, we had the bucket with the little, the wooden scoop that we had to take like one sip and pass it on. It was strictly survival. This was not, there was nothing thrilling about taking this road trip. It was strictly, can we survive to Anaheim? So maybe in my head it'll always be like thousands and thousands of miles, just based on my journeys, my personal journeys.
I remember as a kid there was this article came out. I think I was probably in my teens at this point. That actually cars might do better in gas mileage if you close the windows because they're more aerodynamic and they're not drawing all that wind and drag. And
Yep.
so we were all like, "Hooray!" Because I mean, my parents came from, well, their parents went through the Depression, right?
Yeah.
My parents were what? They were teens in the 50s, I think. And so it was they watched every dime, and it was like, yeah,
I,
yeah, it was just that it was that era, and it was like, really, really, how much are we talking about? I mean, our kids have no clue what
no.
it was like, no clue. When my dad, I bought a pair of Nike high tops canvas in middle school, and Nike was brand new, like
Yep.
Nike had just been released. And boy, I wish he'd have taken some of that AT&T money. He did good with it, and taken that stock money and bought some Nike. But anyway, we were buying Chuck Taylors for the winners. They made them for Converse, made them for Sears because my dad was an Allstate employee. He got 15% discount on clothing, so everything came from Sears. And I had these winners and now Chuck Taylors are so popular, right?
Yes,
And
they are.
Converse,
It's
the
crazy.
kids. I mean, Sophia wears those. They're like two
The
and a
thick,
half inch
chunky ones.
heeled Chuck Taylor high top blacks, but they were $12 when they were. Sometimes when they were on sale, they'd get them for $11 low tops, and
Yeah.
Nikes was $17. Okay, so the difference was a whopping $5. And my goodness, I knew the difference between $5. And
Yes.
if I didn't, my dad let me know about it. We came home. He sent my sister, Lisa, the oldest, and me
Uh,
out to get him instead because mom was dealing with health issues back then, big health issues. And Lisa was really awesome. I mean, she really filled in nicely for the oldest sibling. And she's like, "Yeah, let's get the Nikes." I was in the basketball team. My treads had worn smooth. We were doing the shuttle runs back and
yeah.
forth. in basketball, and I was like, it's one of the fastest kids on the team, but not when you stop and your sneakers slide on the wood gymnasium.
Yeah.
So $17. He's like, I never heard of such a ridiculous thing in all my life. $17 for a pair of sneakers. I don't know if he ever realized how much a pair of Michael Jordans ends up costing now.
But
It's been
I
going.
would doubt it. The funny thing is too, you just said, the Nike, you wish he'd have bought Nike stock. I wish I would have bought a second pair of all the Nike shoes that I bought over the years, going all the way back to the 80s, man. That's a lot of money nowadays. All those throwback shoes. I mean, there's people breaking out their Jordans, that the first series from the 80s. Was that 84, I think, when Michael Jordan dropped his first pair? And they're still using them, and they're worth thousands of dollars.
Pops has been gone for a while now. It's been
Yeah.
at least 15 years. I miss him.
I
Yeah.
miss him too. Yeah.
My friends, they loved that guy. They did. I was like, my dad? They're like, your dad's cool. I was
Yeah.
like, my dad? Because we kind of, went like that.
I
I
know.
try all the time not to butt heads with Jude and Isaac for the same reason, because young guys are like that.
They're
All
going
right,
to do the same thing. They're going to do someday. Somebody's going to go, "Hey, Jude, man, your dad's really cool," and he's going to go, "My dad? Are you sure, Charles? We're talking about the same guy."
They already have a couple of guys that say that, and the kids are like, "What?" And Angie was like fact checking it, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, he was laughing, and I was trying to determine, was he laughing at you, or is he just so entertained by you? And she goes, I've determined that he really just likes you.
I
And
think
I'm
so.
like, I don't know if you knew it or not, but I'm kind of a likable guy.
I
I'm
got my
kind
high
of-
points. Yeah.
I'm kind of a big deal. I got my high points. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, Mark, we got to talk about this. Okay.
So email went out to federal employees, right? And not the scam or phishing emails. This is a legit from the federal government offer, right? We're talking about people who've been working remotely, and now there's an offer on the table. So what was the offer, and what do
Okay.
federal employees need to start thinking about?
It's funny you brought up scam, because a lot of them said, is this a legitimate email?
Yeah,
Turns out it was very legitimate. And it's not just to people who are teleworking remotely, it's to everybody. Was sent out, right? And so there were some people excluded, postal workers, because they work those people to the bone.
Mhm.
People say, well, I saw my mailman sitting in his vehicle. Yeah, he's having a lunch break. I mean, those laws were passed back in the 20s, right? Maybe over a century ago, folks.
Yeah.
People are lawfully allowed to break for lunch.
And,
Okay, so
and 15 minutes every 2 hours. That's your break time.
so I mean, these guys, they really they really work. So they excluded postal workers from that email, and law enforcement, anybody involved in
Right.
national security, right? Oh, and immigration officers, right? So that probably took out a bunch of people from ICE and Border Patrol. And my colleagues, friends that I work with at DEA, right? I'm not a federal employee. What I mean by that
Right.
is, I help them with their retirement. We create, retirement plan for them, an investment plan. So other than law enforcement, postal, immigration officers excluded, right? Otherwise, everybody got the email.
Yeah.
And it was a legitimate OPM email that said, it was what, June 20 or January 28th? It
January
said,
20. Yeah.
we realize that a lot of you are working from home. We're going to make it mandatory that you all go back to the office. If you don't want to go to the office, then reply to this email by February 6th. That's the last date that you can reply to the email. And all you do is reply. Make sure it's from your .gov or .mil email. And you're just going to say, resign. That's it. It's that simple. And by the way, a whole litany of questions started ringing up,
Yeah.
and they're still ringing up on the internet about this, because at first we initially didn't even think. We were like, well, wait a minute. So does that mean they're just going to, as I read it, it said they were going to be allowed to continue to telework from home,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
They're going to continue to telework from home, but by the latest date, they're going to be resigned or retired September 30th of 2025. That's it. That's what I initially thought that's what I read, and that's what I initially thought, and that's what a really smart colleague of mine, who's since retired from the financial services arena for federal employees, but still is active, still helps me with things, and we utilize her services when I instruct at federal agencies. We also have her as an instructor at federal agencies. So and different. I mean, she's a walking encyclopedia
Yeah.
of knowledge. Yeah. And so anyway, she read the same thing, and then she came back to me later on that day and said, "Wait a minute, I'm reading something else here." So it's been pretty exciting the last few days.
So
I can't remember the last time it was this exciting federally. Seriously. I can't remember the last time it was this exciting federally. I'm not shedding a tear for you all. I'm just letting you know.
yeah, federal work is rarely exciting. At least most of it, right? A lot of money. I work for the federal government too. I know how it is. So a couple of things there. Now we want to talk first of all about the buyout, right? Because there is a buyout offer. If you sign and you say resign, there is something on the table to incentivize that, right? That's the idea.
Okay, so yes, and oddly enough, we go back to the Doge podcast that we
Right.
did, right? And they said it was political. We were like, it's not political. We're commenting on what was already said,
Yeah.
and now it's a reality. Okay, so I recall that Elon Musk mentioned in that video that we shared with y'all, he mentioned that, well, we're not just going to drop them and
Right.
release them, fire them. We're going to give them some kind of an incentive pay or a severance package.
Right.
Apparently, this is the severance package,
Okay.
because the clarification that came from my friend Ann, and then we read the facts. That's from OPM. They have the facts. So if you go to opm.gov/fork/FAQ. So, it was entitled, Marcus. The email everybody got, the headline, the subject line was "Fork in the Road."
Fork in the
So it's
road.
like, okay, what is this fork in the road? Well, the fork in the road is you either resign or you're going to have to go back to work in person. And if you resign, you're not going to have to go back to work and you can stay at home. We thought teleworking till September 30th, but not so. Am I expected to work? Okay, so I'm reading the FAQ.
Okay, yeah. I was going to ask what the date is then, but yeah, you've got it there.
All right, so am I expected to work? Oh, and it is opm.gov. Anytime you're on opm.gov, it's legit. Am I expected to work during the deferred resignation period? And the answer is, if you hit the plus sign, it goes to the minus and it pulls up the answer. No.
Hmm.
Well, no, except in rare cases determined by your agency, you're not expected to work. I was like, okay. I did not realize that from the email memo, because when you read the email, it was not that clear, right? Because I had two or three employees that were anticipating they were going to retire sometime this year, but now it's like, well, wait a minute, you were going to retire April 30th. Oh, and then I had a friend. When was that? It was Wednesday evening that we had a visit together, and during that, she actually emailed me something from the OPM higher ups that we'll read in a minute, right?
Okay.
And she says, as I read this, Charles, it says that I'm going to get paid. I was going to retire April 30th, and now I'm thinking I'm not going to retire April 30th. Pull my retirement date and make it September 30th. I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
In fact, if you do that, you don't have to. And by the way, folks, people pull their retirement dates all the time.
Yep.
It's not something that's unusual. They change the date that they want to retire, right? So let's look at this. Am I eligible for early normal retirement during the deferred resignation period? Will I be able to accept deferred resignation and still accept retirement during the deferred resignation period? Yes, you will continue to accrue retirement benefits during the deferred resignation period. What? In fact, there's an article that was just read that stated that you'll even accrue your annual leave. Wow.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Should you elect to retire, either early retirement or normal retirement before your final resignation date, your retirement election will override the deferred resignation. So if you have a retirement date that's earlier than that, that'll be the one that happens, right? Why are you being offered deferred resignation? They're going to undergo significant, let me just read it. The federal workforce is expected to undergo significant near-term changes. As a result of these changes, or for other reasons, you may wish to depart the federal government on terms that provide you with sufficient time and economic security to plan for your future and have a nice vacation. Either vacation or you'll be a job hunting for something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's eligible for deferred resignation? It's available to all full-time federal employees except for military personnel of the armed forces. I did forget to mention them too.
Yeah.
Right? So because I work with civilian employees of the post office, those in positions related to immigration enforcement and national security, and those in other positions specifically excluded by your employing agency. So other positions too, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't get the email, you can get it, right? Visit the OPM website. You can you can review the email and find instructions for submitting it. Yeah, so I believe it's hr@opm.gov to respond to this. What happens if I don't respond to the email or accept deferred resignation? Nothing. You have no obligation to respond to the email. Accepting deferred resignation is in your sole discretion and is completely voluntary, right? So if you're on leave, they did say something about that too. Deadline to, if you miss the February 6th deadline due to approved absence for some or all of the period from this January 27th to February 6th, you're entitled to request an extension. Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah, go ahead. Ask me.
Because I want to pop in here with a question, because when we did the podcast and we discussed Doge and we discussed Musk's initial thoughts on this, his idea was it wasn't simply to offer someone incentive to retire now, right? I mean, because that's kind of what it comes across as, is here's a little bump so that you can retire now. His idea was to set people up so if they did retire early or if they did lose their job, that severance package, or what the offer was to incentivize them maybe to start doing things that would boost the economy, like start a small business or investing that somewhere else. Does it look like that's where it's headed, or does it look like it's not quite that good?
I don't know, Marcus. So there was a caveat here.
Yeah.
Let's say your agency needs you to mentor somebody else or to hand off caseload or duties and relationships that you've made. A lot of DoD employees that I work with, they have relationships with contractors and such, and those things are semi-essential, right?
Yeah.
I would say they're quite interesting employment for a lot of folks, right? And so because of that, your agency might say, well, hold on a second here, right? Hold on a second. I have somebody that I'm helping now that's in charge of emergency disasters, right? For the U.S. Army and overseas, right? He travels to Eastern Europe sometimes. So it's a pretty sensitive job. They might need several weeks to transition his position. But guess what? Even several weeks from February 6th, when you're saying you've got to respond and you're going to be resigned.
Yeah.
Right. Let's take it forward to, let's say it bleeds into mid-March. Well, if it's mid-March, right, to mid-September, that's 6 months that you're not going to be working, that you're going to get paid for. So that is a severance package.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 6 months of pay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. But I'm going to talk about, I want to bleed out all of your questions. And then I want to talk about, does it make sense for you to take this resignation?
Yeah. So then just as a follow-up to what I was just mentioning, because now when you're talking about that 6 months severance package, I mean, to me, that there is some real benefit to the economy as what Musk was talking about, because you do have now 6 months to either study, learn something new if you want to continue working, right? You may be retiring from your federal job, but you may want to continue working. Also, to develop a business. We have discussed that in other podcasts, the idea of small businesses. A lot of people sit around and say, man, I wish I had time to open a food truck or whatever it is that they want to do, right? Bake and sell cakes seasonally, whatever it is. Well, now it seems like this is the opportunity. This may be the chance for some of those people who've been sitting on these ideas to take advantage of the situation and view it as a positive.
I like that, Marcus.
Yeah.
Let's change it, right? Let's spin this. Why
Yeah.
don't we view this as a positive, right?
Yep.
For for most of the folks that I've been talking to, it has been a positive. Remember, you don't have to resign.
Right.
It's voluntary. Uh, it's going to be very interesting because Marcus, just west of me,
Uh-huh.
have you seen that massive ziggurat building? It's built like an Aztec pyramid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen that because you've
I
been
have.
visiting me for years now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's sold finally. They've been talking about selling it for 17 years. It finally sold, but massive amount of Department of Treasury and USCIS, Customs Immigration Services
Hmm.
personnel were in that building.
Huh.
But the CIS, they've been working at home now for years since COVID. I mean, it's been years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 19 plus
Yeah.
5.5 years, right?
Yeah.
That broke in the beginning of March of 2020. So now it's
2020.
been 5 years, right? We're going to
Yep.
be
We're coming up
we're,
on
we're
5
going
years
to be
from
in
the start.
February here next week.
Yep.
So this weekend. So it's, I mean, and those folks work away. They know when they're not working. They have a very specific metrics and amount that they have to process every day. I tell you this because a lot of my clients have they have arthritis in their hands.
Yeah.
I mean, they type so much, and I don't know if they go through physical papers. I can't remember, but in that building house, I don't know how many languages. I'm going to spitball in here, but I'm going to say it was north of 20 languages, right?
Wow.
Maybe I can name you 10, right? Definitely Vietnamese, Korean, Mandarin, Persian,
Wow.
Arabic, and then the standard European languages,
Right.
German,
Spanish, French, Italian, German, English.
Spanish, French. Yeah. So yeah, but there was right. Yeah. Did I miss? I mentioned. Yeah, I did. Oh, Tagalog, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, and maybe Cebuano. Cebuano. Am I saying it right? Yeah. So from the Philippine Islands, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was and also Hindi and
Right.
Tamil,
Gujarat,
uh,
probably.
Telugu and Gujarat and yeah, Malayalam, I think the languages and yeah, so there's a bunch. Anyway, they all work from home and they just got rid of the building and they have a little bitty building over here that they relocated to, right? And it's for management and for them to come in once in a while. So it'll be interesting.
Hmm.
IRS too, they relocated
Yeah.
to the foothills and it's going to be interesting because if they all came in at once back to work, they're not going to fit. There's not desks and chairs, right? So I don't know.
So they're
Somebody's,
counting. It sounds like they're counting on a lot of people accepting the offer to resign early.
I don't know. Somebody said, there's a lot of people with conspiracy theories, and they said, well, I mean, present administration's connected to real estate, and a lot of the cronies have empty office buildings, right? And so maybe they need to occupy more office buildings that are empty. But listen, it's true. If I go just north of me into Irvine, there's lots of empty office
Yeah.
buildings, right? And that's going to come due between this year and 2028. I read an article about that. All those loans are going to come due. We don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But either way, I don't know what the impetus is. I know it's on. It's on right now, right? So look, if you were already planning on retiring, then this year, then it makes total sense
Yeah.
to go ahead and take the resignation because in that case you were already retiring. I'm thinking of so that was Wednesday night. She was going 4:30, the end of April, and then another gentleman I'm helping out of state over in New Mexico. He's going the end of May. Well, if he's going the end of May and he didn't submit his packet, go ahead and do it the end of September because
Yeah.
you're going to get paid for 4 more months, right?
Might as well.
Here's a problem. If some people trigger this, there's no other like incentive except for the, theoretically from February, right? It's 7 months of pay, right? That you're not going to get, right?
Yeah, I'm
even
doing the math top of my head.
8 months.
That's right.
8 months if they actually let you go February 6th, right?
Right.
Then it's 8 months, right?
Yep.
According to that letter, no, you don't have to continue to work. But it's 8 months. But we don't know how the process is going to come back. And I'm going to tell you, OPM is going to be pulling their hair out at their roots because how
They
are they
probably
going to
already
process?
are. Yeah.
So I talked to my colleague, Ann, and she said, Charles, I don't think there's going to be that many people that take the offer up.
Hmm.
I think it's going to be mostly those people that are already resigning, right? They're already going into retirement. So that means you have to be eligible. So what I mean by this, Marcus, is there's no special door that opens up. If you don't have 60 years old with 20 years of service, then you're not eligible to retire and receive a pension. You
Right.
can defer your pension. Let's say you're 58 with 20 years. Let's say you're 58 with 5 years. 5 years of federal service, civilian, you're vested. So it's 62. You can defer your retirement,
Hmm.
and maybe you'll take advantage of those, right? Almost nearly 8 months of pay, severance pay, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you'll take advantage of that, like you said, resharpen your skills, take classes, go to school, or you already have a job offer, or you don't need to continue to work.
Yeah.
I have a friend that I help, that's overseas on the Saudi Peninsula, right? And yeah, he's a naval employee, and he really doesn't need to keep working, but he's examining this right now. But it's his job; he really enjoys it now, and so he doesn't want. He used to have to travel, well, constantly. There's a branch of the Navy that is constantly in travel because they supply the U.S. naval vessels with what they need, and they're also merchant marines, so they're on the high seas, right? Or in
Yeah.
But either way, yeah, he doesn't have to travel. He's got a pretty cool gig, but he's like, look, if I wait till 62 and this gig is pretty nice and I'm not that far off, I'll get a 10% bonus in my pension for the rest of my life. If you just heard that, folks, I want you to remember this. If you have 20 years of service, civilian service, and yes, your military time, your active duty military time, if you bought it back,
Yeah.
not retired military, no, no, no. Those who have active duty time, let's say at any time, you have 6 months, you can have 12 years active duty time. If and only if you bought that back, 12 years of service. Let's say you have 8 civilian, okay? You bought that 12 years active duty back, and you're 62, then you qualify for a 10% bonus in your federal pension, your FERS, Federal Employee Retirement System. You'll qualify for that 10% bonus. So that's really important. You might take this offer and you're not 62 till, let's say, November 15th, 2025, and you got your 20 years or more. 20 years or more. There's no more than that. 20 years or more of federal service. Okay?
Yeah.
You just missed that 10% bonus because you took the resignation offer. So that's that. I don't, unless you're going to be gone in the first couple of years, right? Gone meaning you're terminally ill, right? Then that doesn't make sense, right? Get your 10% bonus. You could be 63. You could live to be 93, and you're going to get another 200, 300, 400, 500 bucks a month,
Yeah.
right?
All
Because of that
time.
10%. Yeah, all that time just for waiting till your birthday.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Does that make sense? Have I given you too much, Mark?
No, no, no. That definitely makes sense because there's it's definitely advantages you have to weigh out, right, to everything. And in this case, we're discussing specifically accepting the offer. So there is a lot there that you have to unpack and see it from your personal standpoint, right? What benefits you personally?
Yeah.
Take the money now, or like you said, wait just a few more months, forget the buyout offer, but you're getting 10% more over the course of years, and in which case that's a much better offer. But everybody has to weigh out those things for themselves and what they want to do with their personal lives.
That's
But
it.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, right? I was talking about 16, 20. Let's say you hit 20 years and you're 60 and a half. You might think, well, you know what? I'm going to hit the 20 years during this deferred resignation, the deferral
yeah,
period. Well, okay. You're going to make more money on the deferral than you would if you took your pension and you took the supplemental payment. That supplemental payment and pension, it's not going to be as much as getting paid straight up, right?
yeah,
25 years of federal service is 25% of your high three.
yep,
Unless you're 62, then it's the extra 10% bonus, right?
yep.
So it's 27.5% in that scenario. 25 years, what's 10% of 25, right? It's 2.5. So it's
Two and a half, yeah.
27.5%. But that's not and even if you get that supplemental payment, right? If you did 25 years, here, let me reach for my calculator. 25 years divided by a factor of 40. And so you get 62.5% of your Social Security payment. Let's say that's 2,000 bucks. It'd be 1,250 plus that 25%. If you made 100,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you made 100,000, then you're going to get 25 grand. And 25 divided by 12 months, it's
A little over
2,000 bucks plus
two
the
grand.
1,250.
Yeah. A little over 2,000 a month.
2.1 or so plus, right? So we're going to make 3,350 bucks. We're spitballing round numbers. You're only going to make 40 grand, folks. It's much better for you to stay inside the resignation.
Yeah.
Take the resignation, or you don't qualify. You're not 57 with 30 years of service, right? Those are the qualifications, eligibility for retirement. You're not 60 years old with 20 years of service. And so you're young. Let's say you're 40 years old and you've already got an offer from a, like I said before, some of you, you work next to contractors.
Right.
Right. And you're like, well, wait a minute. They've already made me a really nice offer. I was on the fence. I'm really close to taking this offer. I'm going to take it. You know what? I'll put in my resignation. You resign early, right? The job doesn't start till, I don't know, it might start March or April. Can you take your resignation? Yes. Let's go back to those fact questions, right? Am I permitted to extend? Can I accept another job after I submit my resignation, but before my final resignation date? Nothing in the resignation letter prevents you from seeking outside work during the deferred resignation period.
Yeah.
You should ask your agency's human resources team about what restrictions, if any, exist for employees who have resigned but remain employed, including on administrative leave by their employing agency. Okay, so this is going to be, can I return to work in the federal government? Deferred resignation does not affect your ability to apply to work for the federal government in the future. Okay? Yeah. How will I know my resignation has been received and accepted? Great question. You will receive an email confirming receipt with additional information on next steps. Given the volume of emails, this confirmation email may take up to 72 hours. You should retain the record of your resignation email. By all means, save that email. Hard copy, soft copy.
I was about to say print a hard copy too.
Because I think there might be, I don't know if you knew it or not, folks, but sometimes the government makes mistakes.
What?
Everybody laughs at that statement when I'm teaching in class. Well, and it's just, listen, we all make mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And we're talking about clerical errors. Happens all the time.
Yeah, right. So make sure you save that, right? You should always do it. It's just like when you buy back your military time, your active duty time. You have to keep a record of that because sometimes they lose track of that. I see that happen, right? And it's really arduous, difficult to pull it back when you don't have proof, right?
Right.
I'm helping somebody right now who swears they paid back their military time, but and they swear that it was on their paid back on their leave and earnings statement. As a sidebar, pull back, look for other leave and earnings LES statements, pay stubs. In the box 20, if you're a GS employee, it's right there. And it'll say owed, and it might say zero, and amount paid, and it'll tell you. So you can use that maybe as proof. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting times, isn't it?
Yeah, good stuff. I would really, since we brought it up, really maybe we need to take another moment and talk about what you need to consider if you want to continue working, right? If you're because we've focused heavily today on accepting the offer. Accepting, this buyout, if you will, and your possibilities. But what would be the reasons to stay, to continue on? And I think there's some meat there left on that bone that we need to consider.
Do you? I thought we covered it pretty well. So what should we?
I don't know. I still feel like I have questions, but I don't want to get into it right this second.
No, I think if you were already going to retire, take it. If you figured out a plan that you can live on retirement at 58 years old, let's say, with 30 years of service. I said 57, but I'm just saying, for sure your minimum retirement age is 57 or younger. For most listening, it's anywhere between 56 and 57, unless you're in your 80s and still working for the federal government, okay? Otherwise, Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, it's between 56 and 57, more or less. But I say 57. Did you already have a plan that you could afford to retire at 57 with whatever years of service you have, 30 years or more? If you already had that plan and you qualified, okay, then it makes sense. But if that wasn't your plan, or as I said before, Marcus, if you're going to be 62 in just a couple months, maybe you keep working.
Yeah,
Now,
hold out.
let's go back to the other scenario though, Mark. Maybe it's maybe you do not want to go back to in office. How many of you have told me, Charles, I am not going back in office. I'm not going to do it. I've extended my career because of the convenience of teleworking. I
Yeah.
get more done. I'm not interrupted near as often. And guess what? I don't have to drive an hour and 15 minutes,
You're,
hour and
you're
a
not
half
you're not
in
sitting
a
on the 10 all afternoon.
yeah, in a van, right, with other people,
Yeah.
right, or on my own, right? A lot of you don't even want to travel if it's 45 minutes in traffic anymore.
Yeah.
But you're extending your career and you feel like, hey, this works. It's been advantageous for you. Those of you who it's been advantageous for and you don't want to go back in person, well, we don't know what they're going to do. Like I said, there's not desks and chairs for all of you,
Yep.
but there's plenty of DoD employees that those desks still exist, and they're going to say, "Hey, you're going back." And so in that case, you might want to take this offer, right? Look, I'm going to suggest something. Go ahead and call us. And if you want to talk
Yeah.
about this before February 6th, you've got a moment in time, a few days, call us. You might be able to get on my calendar 15 minutes, phone call. Yeah, just say, look, I really got to talk to Charles. I really want to talk to him about this. I
I
have a
like
couple
that.
of questions that are nagging at me. Then call 949-359-5100, 359-5100, or text. You can text the same number and say, call me. And we'll be able to, right? We'll be able to text back, or you can even text your questions, right? And then I'll have your number right there in front of me. I
I
can
like that.
call you immediately if I can. I don't know about immediately. I shouldn't say that. But when I have an open moment, I can do that because this is really an important step here.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
don't want you to mess it up no more than you want to mess it up, right? I
Right.
want
And
you to get this right.
in the course of a half-hour podcast, I mean, we really everything here is broad strokes, very broad strokes. So in order to get to know what's right for you, yes, you need to consult with somebody who's going to be on your side and help you through that process.
Yeah, I want you to nail this down,
Yeah,
right? Okay,
absolutely.
Marcus, I want to read this
Yes,
one last thing.
please.
It's a letter dated January 28th to heads and acting heads of departments and agencies from Charles Etzel, Acting Director, U.S. Office of Personnel Management, OPM. And the reference guidance regarding deferred resignation program. Paragraph 2, and it is starts with employees who accept deferred resignation should promptly have their duties reassigned or eliminated and be placed on paid administrative leave. Let me say that again. Employees who accept deferred resignation should promptly have their duties reassigned to somebody else or eliminated and be placed on paid administrative leave until the end of the deferred resignation period, generally in brackets September 30th, 2025, unless the employee has elected another earlier resignation date, unless the agency head determines that it is necessary for the employee to be actively engaged in transitioning job duties, in which case employees should be placed on administrative leave as soon as those duties are transitioned.
Hmm.
So that's from the head of OPM. He's basically saying you let them go. You're going to reassign their duties or eliminate them. And they're going to be put on administrative leave, admin leave. Okay. So that's it. Paid.
Yeah.
It says paid. So just to be clear again, okay, Marcus, I think this is such an important podcast that I think we should skip the health tip.
Yeah, I was
Honestly.
going to say we're running a little long,
Well,
and we have a lot of good help tips, so we'll make it up, and maybe we'll
yeah.
just have to, because you mentioned conspiracy theories, we'll have to do a podcast on conspiracy theories someday and discuss JFK and aliens at Area 51. Anyway, topics for another day. But yeah, good stuff
Yes.
today. I
All
like.
right. And remember, September 30th, that's when you're going to be gone. You're resigned, right? Whether you're retiring or you're moving on to another job, and you got to reply to this email from a .gov or .mil email by February 6th.
6.
Okay. So get her done if you want to get it done. And we went over why you shouldn't if you don't, right? If you don't want to get it done, and you don't have to. And we don't know what the future holds, how they're going to put you in desks and chairs for some agencies. Others, you know that it's already available. And look, one thing I did want to say, Marcus,
Yep.
I work with a lot of folks that said, look, Charles, it's situational for us, right? We situationally telework sometimes when it's convenient. But if they want us to go back into work, okay. You know, sometimes on Fridays, I do telework situationally, right? But it's not that hard for me to go back to work, right? Yeah. So, all right.
Again, you know, this is where we always encourage everybody, reach out. Charles already gave the number. There's going to be a link below. You can reach CD Financial directly. You want someone on your side who's looking out for your benefits. Bounce these questions off of, get everything clear in your head before you make that decision. But it looks like there's some true value here in accepting that offer.
Yeah, and there's,
always,
by the way, there's a webinar Monday. What's the date Monday? It's February 3rd
February
at
3rd. Correct.
12 o'clock high noon pack time, 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central, 1 o'clock Mountain. And you can text us for that too, or just hit the link here in the podcast for the webinar. How's that sound? And you can attend that. I don't expect it to go, well, I didn't expect this to go more than 25 minutes, but what do you know, right? There are a lot of things to talk about.
Yes.
So I expect it to be about a half hour top to bottom, but there could be a lot of concerns, and we'll answer them at the end of that webinar, okay?
Perfect. I love it. And as always, folks, we ask that you subscribe because you'll get these videos right away in your inbox, and hit that like button. We appreciate your support to all these, and we hope that it's very helpful for you moving forward, considering your future. So remember us here at CD Financial. Yeah. Chuck, as always, man, it's a pleasure to be with you. I love sitting around and chatting with you about these topics. Great to see you. The beard is looking great.
Oh, thanks for that.
Hang on to it, man.
It may survive the curlies, right? It's been almost a month, and I'm about ready to lose it. But you know, you know, I don't know. It looks cool. It looks cool. For now, we'll keep it.
I love it.
All right,
I love it,
folks. We're here to help you. Love you. I mean it.
Yep.
I mean, you know, I think you guys kill it out there. I'm very happy to support y'all, and in your service too. So keep it up. Okay, Marcus.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. CD Financial, where health meets wealth. We look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, Chuck, be good, my brother.
You too, Marcus.
Take care.
Bye-bye. CD Financial, where health meets wealth.